The 1960s were undoubtedly one of the best decades for music, with some truly awesome songs. You had everyone from the Beach Boys to the Temptations, releasing hit after hit.
Sunshine, blue skies, please go away.
So much so that it seemed like an all-time classic song was being released every week. With the sheer volume of amazing singles being released, it's only natural that some fantastic songs that were once everywhere have since slipped through the cracks. After all, there's only so many hours in the day we can listen to music. But today we're taking a deep dive into some stellar throwback tunes you may remember but might not have heard in years, and the stories you may not know about them. I'm Nostalgic Nick for Do You Remember, and if you enjoyed this groovy playlist, be sure to hit the thumbs up button for us, and subscribe to our channel to avoid missing our next episode. But now, let's wax nostalgic together. These boots are made for walking, Nancy Sinatra.
One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you.
In 1965, Frank Sinatra's eldest daughter, Nancy Sinatra, walked into and all over our hearts when she released this hit. With a walking bass line that she strutted all over, the single is an excellent example of mid-60s grooviness, helped along by copious use of an instrument sadly lacking in modern music, the tambourine. These Boots was written by Sinatra's longtime musical partner Lee Hazelwood, who also intended to sing the song himself, until Sinatra correctly pointed out that the song would be, quote, harsh and abusive coming from a guy. One of these days these boots are gonna walk all over you seems a lot more ominous and threatening if a man is singing it. Although there have been numerous covers of the song by such varied artists as Billy Ray Cyrus and Megadeth, Nancy's original recording remains both the definitive and best version out there. While not played much on the radio, the song can still be found stomping away in such movies as Full Metal Jacket and Austin Powers. Happy Together, the Turtles.
So very fine, so happy together.
The Beatles, the Monkees, the Turtles? You can be forgiven for forgetting that the last of these animalistic bands existed, as history has largely left them behind. And yet, put on their 1967 #1 hit, Happy Together, and you'll find yourself saying, oh yeah, I love this song. Why don't I hear it more? The Turtles were struggling for traction in the competitive 60s Los Angeles music scene when they were approached by their label about recording a new single that 12 other groups had already passed on, Happy Together, which in hindsight seems almost criminal. The Turtles blended folk and psychedelia perfectly on this hit, resulting in mid-60s pop perfection that deserves to stand alongside the best recordings of the decade. Sadly, the magic was not to last, as the band were at loggerheads over the direction of the group, and they broke up just 3 years later. I guess they weren't all that happy together after all. Crimson and Clover, Tommy James and the Shondells. Do you ever wake up in the morning with one image or word lingering inexplicably from your dream? I have, but I never turned these random relics of my subconscious into a #1 hit. One morning, singer Tommy James of Tommy James and the Shondells woke up with 2 words in his head, Crimson and Clover. He had no idea what they meant, but thought they would make a great song title. The song was a departure from the band's bubblegum pop past. It was tinged with psychedelia, and featured a distinctive tremolo effect in which both the song's guitar and vocals would vibrate in time to the single's tempo. After an appearance by the band on The Ed Sullivan Show, Crimson and Clover shot to #1 and spent more than 16 weeks on the charts, as it was #1 during Christmas time. At the end of the song, when the vocals are heavily processed, some listeners thought James was singing "Christmas is over" instead of Crimson and Clover. The song has been covered by such luminaries as Prince and Joan Jett, but it still doesn't get the recognition today that it deserves, as a late 60s psychedelic triumph. House of the Rising Sun, The Animals.
There is a house in New Orleans
While House of the Rising Sun might not be as forgotten as some other of the hits on this list, the story behind the song certainly is, because no one actually knows who wrote it. The earliest published lyrics date to 1925, but the song's origin probably spans back decades, if not centuries before that. Famous folk singers Woody Guthrie and Bob Dylan both tried their hands at it, but it wasn't until the Animals released their version in 1964 that the song truly became a masterpiece. House of the Rising Sun, at 4 minutes 30 seconds, with howling vocals and a pulsating organ, was hardly a typical 60s pop song. The Animals actually sang it at the end of their concerts to set them apart from other bands, but the crowds loved it, and after recording the single in only one take, the band had a hit on their hands. The song was one of the first to successfully blend rock and folk. Apparently, when Bob Dylan first heard the Animals single, he leapt out of his car, pounded his trunk in excitement, and decided at that moment to go electric. You'll Never Walk Alone, Gerry and the Pacemakers. Managed by Brian Epstein, recorded by George Martin. From Liverpool? Ah, this next song must be sung by the Beatles. Wait, it's not? It's understandable if you never heard of the Beatles' little sister of a band, Gerry and the Pacemakers, because history has not remembered them as well as some of their contemporaries. But you've definitely heard their 1963 hit, You'll Never Walk Alone. Originally written for the Broadway musical Carousel, the song is an uplifting exhortation to keep on truckin', even when the world looks bleak. As long as you have hope in your heart, you'll never truly be alone. Although the song has largely been forgotten on this side of the pond, people in the UK will be very familiar with it, as the single is the unofficial anthem for Liverpool FC. The song is loudly sung by supporters before every home match. A tradition that took on a deeper emotional meaning after the Hillsborough disaster of 1989, in which 96 fans were crushed to death. Aquarius, Let the Sunshine In, the fifth dimension.
This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius.
Much like a butterfly flapping its wings, sometimes the smallest events have a big effect. One day, singer Billy Davis Jr. lost his wallet on a train, where it was found by a member of the crew of the Broadway hit Hair. So Davis went to see the show, fell in love with the song Aquarius, and insisted that his band, The Fifth Dimension, record it. When the other members of the band pointed out that it was barely half a finished song, he replied that they would combine it with another of the musical's numbers, which, although different in key and tempo, Davis resolved to, quote, jam together like two trains. And thus was born the perfect song for the late 60s. Just like the hippie movement gaining steam around the country, Aquarius dreamed of a near future where peace and love reign, where free minds guide the future of humanity. And also, just like the hippie movement, the song remains a relic of the past. Although it's awesomely silly and fun, the single rarely gets played today. So come on, let the sunshine in. 96 Tears, Question Mark, and the Mysterians.
You're gonna cry, 96 tears. You're gonna cry.
It seems bizarre that history hasn't been more kind to a song with as catchy an organ riff as 96 Tears, but so goes the fickle tides of taste. When the band released their 1966 hit, it quickly soared to the top of the charts, perhaps lessening the amount of tears the band was crying. Not only was the song a smash hit in its own time, but the single foresaw the future of rock music. 96 Tears, with its simple instrumentation and relentless pace, was one of the first successes for the burgeoning genre of garage rock, and has been credited with being one of the songs that influenced the beginning of punk rock. It's been theorized that 96 was a censored version of the original 69, but lead singer Question Mark has denied this, instead stating that the number has a deep spiritual meaning for him. Bobby Balderrama, the lead guitarist, was only 14 when they recorded this incredible song, because as Q puts it, there's no age to rock and roll. And when asked, where did you get your name, Question Mark, he coolly responded,
well, actually that is my name.
Coming from a man who has stated that his soul is from Mars and he once walked the earth with dinosaurs, that sounds about right. Man, the 60s were the best time for tunes. Even the somewhat forgotten hits were outstanding. So tell us, what dusty gem had you forgotten about? Is there another great 1960s song that should be included on this list? Add it in the comments below. I want to discover some new music and we read every one. If you enjoyed these musical memories, be sure to hit the thumbs up button for us. And subscribe to Do You Remember to avoid missing out on our next throwback video. As always, from all of us here at Do You Remember, thanks so much for watching.